So full time at Croke Park, Derry 1-6, Galway 2-8. Galway have booked themselves into the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship final for the very first time since 2001. It's a massive achievement for the tribes and a massive achievement for Galway. And in the end, Derry fall flat on their face pretty much. You know, obviously, they've had a brilliant year. They've won the Ulster title. I think if you asked any Derry fans before a ball was kicked this year, you know, would they take winning an Ulster title and getting to an All-Ireland semi-finals? They would have bit your hand off. You know, they probably would have ate all of you, to be honest with you, because I mean, to win an Ulster title and to get to an All-Ireland semi-final for a side who I think won like one championship game in like 8 years prior to when they beat Tyrone. Huge achievement. So I think ultimately a wonderful year for Derry, but I think when you look at this game in total, huge achievement for Galway. And just for Derry, unfortunately, they just didn't quite produce the same level of performance that we've seen from them all year. Like, it was very flat. I mean, they hit just 1 point from play after the 11th minute. Do you know what I mean? And that's just not good enough. Obviously, they get themselves a goal as well. Like, but that just isn't good enough, really. Like, it isn't going to, you know, a score of 1-6 isn't going to win you an All-Ireland semi-final. Let's be perfectly honest. And like the energy and intensity that we all thought we'd see from Derry just wasn't there at all. It was there for the first 15 minutes, but then the longer the game went on, you could see Galway just slowly sort of creeping into the game. Like, you forget they didn't even score, you know, until the 21st minute, you know, which I can't remember a team went 21 minutes without scoring. You know, the opening 20 minutes of a game without scoring an All-Ireland semi-final. Kind of crazy, really. I mean, maybe Dublin Donegal 2011 or something like that. I mean, that was kind of a bizarre game as well. But look, I think you have to say about Galway is that they've now arrived at the top table in the All-Ireland scene, in my opinion. It's, you know, I think you have to put them now. They're in the All-Ireland final, so of course they're going to be in the conversation. But it's kind of crazy because I've never really seen them as All-Ireland contenders before today, to be honest. I thought they were a lot of very good players, a lot of very good forwards, and you know, Shane Walsh, Damien Comer, obviously as we've seen today, you know, very good midfield in Paul Conroy and Killian McDade. But I always felt like with Galway that they had a bit of a soft underbelly and defensive issues in there. Game management, I thought, has sometimes been a problem, but today they just put all that to bed. They put all that to bed and you know, wrote us all wrong, because you know, anything we thought they weren't good at, they were excellent at. In fact, you could arguably say they were better at than anyone else have been so far. And you could potentially say they've been maybe the best team in the country. You know what I mean? Like, or at least after a performance like that, because we'll see obviously what happens with Kerry and Dublin tomorrow. We'll see what happens with obviously the performance there. And I think if either one of them two put in a big performance, I think that swings the ball probably back in favour. But you know, a tremendous performance in the end. Like, first half was a terrible game. Let's be honest. Really poor game. I mean, Derry hit the opening 3 points of the game. Brendan Rodgers with 2 fantastic points from play. Niall Loughlin with a score as well. It was looking like Derry's day. They were looking like the side that was dictating the game, controlling the game. Couple of short kickouts from Galway. Just weren't really finding their flow. Galway didn't get their first point of play until the 21st minute with Damien Comer. John Daly hits a point a couple of minutes after that as well. And yeah, it wasn't quite there from Galway. I felt like they weren't backing themselves in the first half. They weren't running at Derry. They weren't kicking the ball into dangerous areas. They weren't taking enough risks, taking enough chances. It was similar enough to Derry, actually. I thought they weren't doing the same either in the second half. Like, they almost went within themselves and sort of panicked and maybe hit the panic button and didn't sort of believe in themselves. The belief wasn't quite there. But in the second half for Galway, I mean, it 100% was. They were winning frees at the start of the second half, which helped them massively. I mean, 4 out of 5 points they kicked were from frees. Some of them you could argue maybe a little bit soft, but I think you've seen a lot of these given, unfortunately. So that's just how it is. Probably the first time we've seen a bit of indiscipline from this Derry side. Damien Comer kicks a point and then obviously gets himself a goal, like really well taken goal. You know, turns his man inside and out and just slots the ball, you know, to the bottom of the net. Really good finish. And once Galway built up a 6-point lead, you felt like unless, dramatic sort of, a dramatic sort of collapse, a bit like against Armagh, you would have felt that, Derry surely have no way back, and they obviously get themselves another goal as well, like Oren Lynch, way too up the field, way too far up the field, it must be said. He gets completely caught out. Sean Kelly with a really good decisive ball into Damien Comer, and he just ends up slotting the ball then into the empty net. And it was game, set, and match. Derry get a late goal from Lakeland Murray, but it was the last bit of play we seen in the game. And Galway win. They win the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship semi-finals and booked themselves into the final. What a huge, huge day for the tribesmen. Plenty of comments coming in there. Dubs fan says, considering what Armagh did in the quarters, did Derry drop any high balls in on the Galway goalkeeper? Good riddance to negative tactics. Yeah, they didn't at all. I was kind of saying that in the watch along. Like, I was kind of saying, why don't they float long balls in there, try something different? Because clearly what they were trying wasn't working. They were trying to run it through Galway. It just wasn't going to happen. They kept getting turned over time and time again. And, I think Rory Gallagher, as we very well know, is one of the best managers in Gaelic games. And for what he's achieved with Derry already is, remarkable. But surely he should have said to the lads, like, I know they would have been giving away possession, but at least for the final 10 minutes, just try something different, because it just wasn't working at all. And, for negative tactics, I've said multiple times on this that, like, I have no problem with teams being defensive and getting men behind the ball. Different ways of winning games, different styles make fights. If it wins you trophies, fair, albeit. But I think when it's not working, you do need to change it up. And clearly in the second half, when they started to go 3-4 points down and they kicked like no points from play in like 50 minutes, I think it's time you try change something. I know it's kind of difficult because you've never, Derry have probably trained as a defensive team this year. They haven't really been an attacking team. You know what I mean? It's hard to just flip the switch, but surely there has to be a plan B, because you're not going to win an All-Ireland without a plan B, in my opinion. You look even at Donegal in 2012, for example, when they won the All-Ireland that year, like 2 long balls into Murphy is where the goals come from. Do you know what I mean? Like, they were floating a lot of long direct balls into Michael Murphy in around the square, and that was causing havoc for the Mayo defenders. And that's where you mix it up, and that's maybe the difference between, that Donegal side and this Derry side, But yeah, Brian says the system Derry play only gets you so far. Fair play to Galway. They at least went for the game and played the better football with more attacking intent. Yeah, they definitely, they took the game to Derry. I think the game was there really for either side, and Derry or Galway were the ones who did take the initiative, Limo says, when Derry didn't get an early goal, it threw them. A lot of huffing and puffing, but level at half time. Didn't seem to know how to approach game when they were behind. Galway's class came through. Yeah, I think Derry just panicked massively. Like, they just, even in the second half towards the end, they were just running into brick walls. They weren't even shooting. Like, it wasn't even like they were missing chances. They just weren't even shooting at all. Like, they just weren't backing themselves. Their forwards were way too static. There was no movement, no urgency. It just was, it was just complete panic mode. And sometimes you see this from a team who probably haven't been in this position too often, have never been in this position too often. And I think that's been the problem for Derry, is that this was the first time they went behind and faced like real adversity, and they didn't come through it. They came through it against Donegal, but they didn't come through it today. But look, it's a learning curve. It's a young side in some respects. It's the first year where I was going to say Shane McGuigan there, where Rory Gallagher's got something out of this Derry side and he's got them far. They're progressing, they're moving forward, and it's still there's still a lot to be positive for from a Derry perspective. If you had said to any Derry fans that you'd win the All-Ireland this year, they would have thought you were absolutely mental. You know what I mean? So, the fact they haven't won one, it's not that big of a deal, I don't think. But, I think they will need to look at just maybe if things are going wrong, mixing things up a little bit, because I think if you keep trying to play that way, you might win an All-Ireland, but you're probably more likely not to, in my opinion, especially when you come up against teams who do have physical players and good forwards as well, which Galway clearly do have. And for me right now, I think Galway have the best midfield in the country as well, like in Conroy and McDade. I think the find of McDade has been excellent. Like, he's been very, very good for Galway in that midfield. So, yeah, very, very good stuff. Rommel says Ulster found out. It's been a long average province for years now. Horan and Mayo really threw it away last year. Yeah, Mayo definitely have thrown it away on multiple times, unfortunately. Brian says, in fairness, Armagh play attacking football. They've tried a defensive system for the first Donegal game, and it just doesn't suit the players we have. Yeah, Armagh were definitely a lot more attacking. I mean, you've seen against Galway, like, they were very attacking. And Armagh, I think that's why Armagh have struggled in Ulster a lot of the time, is because they come up against very defensive sides. And, the times when defensive sides get the most joy is when they come up against naive teams who attack too much and leave too much space in behind. Like, Galway mirrored exactly what Derry done in the first half, and even in the second half at times as well, where they just kept every man behind the ball and just, limited any goal chance at all. Like, it was impossible for Derry to get any goal chances. They couldn't run through them. There was just no space at all. And it was excellent defending from Galway, and the work of Cian O'Neill since he's come into this Galway side, I think, is really, really showing. Derry didn't perform like they did against Tyrone or Clare. They certainly didn't. They were nowhere near the same levels today. Just, whether it was a step too far, didn't seem to quite have the same energy either. Like we all said, they wouldn't get tired. They looked dead on their feet really after about half an hour, to be honest. And they just fell flat. They just didn't really have an answer to what Galway were giving them. And you know what they say, like, everyone's got a game plan until you get punched in the face. And, Derry were getting punched from all angles, to be honest. And they just had no response. And as soon as Comer got that first goal, it was game over. But yeah, big congratulations to Galway. Be interesting to hear from Galway fans, or from those who are watching, who they'd rather play, Dublin or Kerry, in the final. Be interested to hear that. And I suppose, do you think you can win the All-Ireland now? Because I really do give you a real chance. Like, I think, look, it's a one-off game, first of all. You just never know what could happen in a one-off game. I think Dublin have clearly got their vulnerabilities. I think Kerry have got their vulnerabilities. And I'd give Galway a serious chance. And, I don't want to say they'll win it now, because I think we need to see what happens tomorrow first. But I think they could just do it. And as I said in the stream, I think it reminds me a bit of Tyrone last year, where, like in the semi-finals, everyone was talking about Dublin, Kerry, and Mayo, and no one really spoke about Tyrone, and Tyrone won it. And it reminds me a bit like Galway. Like, no one was really backing Galway, and here they are. They're in the All-Ireland final. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, they've beaten some big teams as well. They've beaten Mayo, Armagh, beaten Derry now as well, beaten Roscommon. So they've had a tough route to the final. So it's going to be intriguing. But yeah, let me know your comments, your thoughts down below. There will be a live watch along tomorrow for Dublin Kerry, so stay tuned for that. Subscribe if you haven't already. Massive congratulations to the Tribesmen and to Galway, and I'll see you all later.